Welcome to episode 77 of Beer with Strangers. I'm your host, Tony Russo, and I'm joined this week, as I'm joined each week, by my co-host, Doug Griffith.
Good afternoon, Tony. Thanks for coming again today, and I'll start with the weather report. Nice outside, but it's a little cloudy today. The sun's not out like it has been the last couple of days, so it doesn't feel as bright and cheerful today, but still not bad for the first week in November as far as temperatures go.
I didn't have a coat on today. Yeah. I did get a little bit of rain on my way in from Ocean City.
It rained here a little bit this morning, but not much.
Just a little taste. But it's great fall weather. And now we're listening to myself at the same time.
More technical difficulties.
We've been having a little technical difficulties, and we don't know why. We're just going to start closing things until it stops. Oh, there it is. All right. So you know, and I guess we just found out the hard way, this is actually playing live on the Shore Craft Beer website. If you click on play on shorecraftbeer.com, you can watch it right on the website.
Well, maybe we get more people calling in and asking questions this way.
Maybe we will, and that would be cool. So yeah. we are watching the Q&A. So if you have any questions or answers, feel free to chime in on the website.
We can always put some questions out there and see if we do get answers.
Absolutely. Well, we can tell if anyone's looking, and they're not yet. Sometimes people look, and sometimes they ask later. But you can also always, I guess we'll say it, you can also always email questions. Best way to get me is easiest to say now is tony@oceancity.com. That's an easy website to remember. You can find the podcast and all of the other things about Beer with Strangers at extremebrewing.com. With or without the X, you'll get, no, with or without the E. You need the X, definitely. Yeah. You don't need the E, but you definitely need the X. And go to everything else, and you'll find the podcast site. So this week, there's plenty of stuff to talk about it again. We're sorry we're late because of technical difficulties. But the first thing that we did want to discuss was Evolution Craft Beer and Rise Up Stout.
They've placed very, very well for their stout.
It's very cool. The Paste magazine, which I usually don't like, and there's a good reason to not. Paste is generally one of those aggregating magazines. So what they do is they go and they read other stories, and then they just rewrite them and tell them like a funky way. And so sometimes it's good stuff. A lot of times it's not great stuff. Paste has been improving significantly, though, over the last 6 months to a year. And I like it better now than I used to. It's still a little listy for me. I don't like BuzzFeed. I don't like any of the listicle types. But we're going to brag about this because one of our local beers was listed in their top 51.
That's their
Stouts.
Rise Up Stout.
That's Rise Up Stout, available from Evolution Brewing. And what's kind of cool about this list, it's not a list of favorites. They say, and I believe them, they did a blind taste test. And in this blind, so they had a blind taste test of 51 beers, and just like, which one do you like the best? Rate this beer on a scale of 1 to 10. And I'll tell you, Rise Up Stout, that's a good beer.
Yeah, it is.
It's not my favorite. My favorite from Evo, I think, would probably be Lucky 7. But this wasn't. Maybe they'll even score higher in the porter
category. Yeah,
in the porter.
But for this, I mean, number 8 out of, you said 50, so that's great.
Yeah, and I don't know if they tried more. I don't know if they tried 100 and picked the top 51 out of 100. I don't know their methodology. But whatever their methodology is, it works out good for Evo, and that always works out good for us. It's cool that we have kind of like an anchor now, that we have two really major breweries that are getting more and more regional, if not, this is national attention. Yeah. So that's cool. And what's good for beer is good for us. And the other thing that's fun is the guys at Rise Up Brewery, the coffee people. It's not Rise Up Brewery, it's Rise Up Roastery. There you go.
Out of Easton.
Yeah, and those are really, really cool guys. I did some stories on them when I was up there at the Star Democrat, and they deserve it, and they do a good job. And I don't know if I've told you this before, but they go to Hawaii or to wherever they buy their beans
coffee
from,
and see where
and they hang out with the farmers, and they help cultivate it. And
so it's not just a large conglomerate that is growing this coffee, and that's I think a lot of the coffees that, or I think all the coffees that we get here are what they call fair trade. It's grown by a individual and generally marketed through a co-op, but
Right.
it's grown locally and cared for locally.
Right, and it's
Not here, but I mean wherever it's grown.
Right, and it's not sharecropping. It's
Right.
it's guys selling their own coffee to people who want to buy it, which is a lot of fun. The guy who started,
Which means they get a bigger part of the profits,
Right.
which is
And-
really wonderful. Which means they can do more, hopefully.
and especially as coffee kind of explodes,
Yeah.
even more, like there are more and more artisan coffees coming online. And what was fun talking to the guys at Rise Up is the different roasts and the different blends and the different beans. They have dozens of different beans that you can buy there, and they can roast them for you.
And roasting will give you a lot different flavors depending upon how it's roasted.
Uh-huh.
And I know from going to see how the roastery we use, which is the Point Coffee House down in Rehoboth,
Mm-hmm.
he kind of goes and picks he does a test batch for each bean he gets and determines what the best roast is.
That's fantastic, and
Get
it's
the best flavors out of it.
It's a lot like brewing in that it is a time consume, like to get the flavors that you want. There's a lot of trial and error.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah,
It is very time sensitive.
And so it's glad that was their, maybe that may have been their fourth beer or their fifth beer. That was an early
Yes.
Evo beer. I remember they did they had the Pale Ale, and they had the ESB, and they had Lucky 7, and they had Lot 3. And I think this might have come out even before Lot 6 did. I think this was a very, very early.
I think you're right, because I remember it being there very early in their brewing days.
Right, and Rise Up actually now has four locations. It has one in St. Michael's, one in Easton, and 2 in Salisbury, where it's real popular. And the guy who owns it, the guy who started it, actually he was in the Peace Corps. And when he got back from the Peace Corps, he had been out around coffee people, I guess, and he just wanted to start roasting coffee. And he started actually at the St. Michael's Farmers Market in a little portable trailer, with a little house on it, and he would do all his roasting in there. And when I left Easton as a reporter, maybe I guess it was 2 or 3 years ago by now, they had purchased a gas station, like this old timey gas station. It's very cool, and they redid the inside. But they also got this massive roaster, and they kept. And you could see the progression, because they have now all of their roasters. They didn't get rid of any at the time. So they had a little one, and then a little bit bigger, and then a little bit bigger, and then they had this massive one. So as the company grew, they just would buy bigger roasters, and so that was cool to see. So congratulations to Evo, and good on you for your success and for making great beer. And I don't think anybody. It's very rare to hear complaints about Evo beer, Evolution beer.
Most of the beer they make is good.
Yeah,
very good.
Very solid, and so it's good to see that. The other thing that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks is the potential, right? It's a done deal, the merger between, let's say, just Budweiser and Miller.
I assume so. I haven't heard anything recently.
Yeah, so. It looked like it was going to happen there, and everyone's talking as if it either has happened or is about to happen. So we'll make this assumption. But one of the things I read earlier this week in Forbes was interesting to me, because I was kind of poo-pooing the whole thing as not a real threat to craft beer. But Forbes pointed out the can issue. Did you get a chance to see that?
No, I didn't see the whole article.
So
I just read the highlights.
That's fine. So what Forbes says is that they're going to want more can space, and craft beers are just getting into canning now. So the idea is this merger will give them more can leverage in a market where craft beer hasn't really hit that big yet.
Yeah. So that's one advantage for them at this point.
Right, yeah. And
but I know here on the shore, a lot of the craft breweries are going with cans, so you can take it places such as fishing or on the beach.
Right.
Where glass is prohibited, or you don't want glass because of breakage.
Right, and also you don't want to carry around a bottle when you carry on a can. So that's a little tough, and it's something to watch out for. And one of the things we talked about here is go to the brewery and get the beer, but it's going to be, if they're fighting for shelf space locally. I would like to see the local brewers at least get together and exert a tiny bit of pressure on the liquor stores. You should
carry their product.
Yeah, you should give local beer plenty of plenty of space, especially in cans where the profit margins on. I can't imagine what the profit margin on a 30-pack of Coors is. I was in downtown Ocean City, and they had a 30-pack of. It was worse than. I don't remember. It was a really low end beer. It was like Milwaukee's Best. It was below Milwaukee's Best. It was a very bottom shelf beer, and I think it was $10.49 for a 30-pack. And so,
well, I guess if you're really thirsty summertime, the lawnmower beer we keep talking about.
Yeah, I can't imagine how sweet that is, though. It just I can imagine just all corn syrup and just a little bit of alcohol, like corn syrup and vodka, I guess. So that's got to be tough for the local businesses who want to have what people want to buy. So that's a battle that'll be fun to watch coming up in the coming months, especially as summer comes on. We'll see how distribution is going, and I know that not everyone is carrying. Dogfish still doesn't can. Evo still doesn't can. Third Wave hasn't canned yet, but they're about to. That's a storage issue for them, right? When they're done with their Third Wave, and Del Mar is building out, and I think when they're done with their build out, they're going to do cans. They're going to do cans. And Tall Tales doesn't do cans yet. They're still big into bottles. So it'll be interesting to see how the can factor plays out. What won't be as interesting to see is in the New York Times, there was just an op-ed that said that in the case of I don't even remember what it said. Distribution rights. Did you get a chance to look at this one?
No, did not. Sorry.
That's all right. I don't. I've got to admit, I'm going to have to read the first line before I recall it because I was putting it together. This is about distribution, and we already talked about this. I'm sorry, I can leave it for you. The op-ed article in the Times, the New York Times. I say the New York Times only because the Daily Times is our local paper, and I could conceivably be talking about that. The op-ed said that the distribution powerhouse that Miller and Bud would become would and could hurt craft breweries. But as we discussed last week, for here locally, first of all, we have self-distribution. Many of these guys
the smaller places.
The smaller places can self-distribute, and the larger places are gonna have to use just a little bit of scarcity muscle, like going to places where it's sold and saying you don't have to push our beer, but we don't have to send you any. And especially like Dogfish is doing a big push out, and I guess Evo must be. Mississippian has just gone into New Jersey now. So as these guys, they're another one who cans, right? And so as these guys expand out, I don't worry so much about that because they've developed already this kind of relationship with their distributors, and their profit margins are better. Like I said, I don't know how much you're making on a 30-pack. If the retail price of a 30-pack is $10 and change, I can't imagine that the distributor is making a ton of money on that. So we'll see how that goes in the future. Or the retailer, yeah. So and it would do them just as well to start pushing the craft beers. It would be cool to see more growler stations in these places. There are still fewer of them.
There's few of them around, but you're right. That gives you more chance of, I think, fresher beer.
Yeah.
As long as they keep moving it.
There's a place in Seaford, the big liquor store up in Seaford has a growler station, and
so does Banks over in on Route 26, outside between Dagsboro and Ocean View.
Oh, that's cool.
They're across from Hawkers. And having a growler station is important because it makes it easier to get a nice fresh beer. I mean, if you're gonna pay $10 for a 6-pack, I would pay $15 for a growler instead, and have the fresh beer right out of the tap and go home and bring it to dinner and share. Or on a Sunday, sometimes I'll drink a growler myself if I'm watching football. But I always get the big beers, and 64 ounces. You get full before you. I can still drive because I'm full. Speaking of being full, and speaking of sweetness, you have purple corn extract here. Yeah, I'm working on some recipes with Dogfish for a book by Patrick McGovern. He's the archaeologist out of the University of Pennsylvania that has been doing research on ancient brews, and he's working on a book right now. But he asked that we brew some of these beers that Dogfish has done and get them ready for home brewers. So that's what I'm working on right now.
And it's kind of cool because there's all sorts of, I forgot. Was I not supposed to bring that up?
No,
all right.
No.
There are all sorts of exotic ingredients around here, and it's very, Doug's already got this whole like mad scientist thing going on, but the place now there's beer all over the place. And earlier this week, somebody said, "Hey, you want a bunch of persimmons?" And I'm like, I don't, but I might know someone who does. And I shot an email over here, and Sean's like, "Don't bring one more thing."
Yeah, we've got so much going on right now with these.
Don't bring one more thing into this madhouse. But it's cool, and it'll be fun to get these beers tried. Are you going to try them all here? Are they going to be on?
I've got them. Well, I don't know if I'm going to have them on tap here or tasting. I'm trying. At least it's my first go around on these batches, and I may make a second just to make sure I've got everything
you did it
working right. Yeah.
And now, do you feel like you'll have an ancient ale series in the in the homebrew store?
Yes,
is that the end game?
Yes, that's the end game.
That is very, very, very cool. And if you're interested in eventually brewing ancient ales, you may want to learn to brew first. And if you want to learn to brew first,
that's this weekend.
It is very exciting.
The American Homebrew is promoting Learn to Brew Day, and we're having class for extract brewing this Saturday, 2 o'clock, runs about approximately 2 hours, 2 to 4, for anybody who wants to learn to brew. So if you're coming, please let us know so we can make sure we have space for you. And brewing wise, the following weekend is our anniversary, the 14th of November, and we're doing a all grain demonstration here for those who want to learn more about all grain, who have never seen all grain done, which is the way big guys do it.
Yeah. And I'll be here. I'll be here at least this Saturday. I would love to come next Saturday. I'm not certain if I'm going to be available.
The all grain will run somewhere between 4 and 5 hours. So. And
I'll be doing a video of the Learn to Brew Day. So, and that'll be available for anyone who's interested in learning to brew and cannot make it. But if you'd like to come and be on camera, we would love to have extra people. I'd like to do some cutaway videos, and we're going to try and record as much of the event as possible and get it up online, maybe in pieces, maybe in steps. One of the things that it was cool to see these guys do is when they explain the step, they explain the whole step, and then they talk about it in a little bit more detail. So it would be cool. We could probably cut up. We've already been talking about cutting up just a couple minute, like a 15-minute video, like step 1, step 2, step 3. So hopefully we'll be able to get that out of this.
Okay, that sounds great.
And then, of course, the questions and answers will be online. And if you have any questions and answers ever, again, reach out to us, as we said at the top of the show, and we'd be happy to answer them. Or if you have observations and you want to share something, or you need to know about craft beer culture here, you can find all of that at extremebrewing.com with or without the E. Next up on the show, I lost track of this. Oh, all right, talk and taste. Pairing beers has been a popular thing for a long time.
Yes, it has.
It's kind of starting to catch on more and more. One of the things that we do is something called a talk and taste, or taste and talk. I don't remember really because I'm still new. But what they do is they get a couple brewers, or as many brewers as they can, to come and talk about their beer. Did you get a chance to look at the thing?
Unfortunately, I didn't look
That's
at that
okay.
I spent most of my time looking at what the Dogfish.
Well, good, because you're going to be. I didn't get to the Dogfish, so that's going to be you. You're going to have to pick that one up. But this one I want to talk about. We're probably going to have it in. You take a look at the story. It's on the website, and it's really just about how chefs are increasingly appreciating craft beer and trying to use it in their recipes more and more often. But what that put me in the mind of is we're getting ready to announce a date, but I want to give you guys a heads up first. In probably early December, we're going to do a talk and taste in Ocean City at a place to be determined. It's a cool place. They just haven't confirmed yet. And it'll be cheese and beer, which is one of my favorite combinations. And in talking, I don't know how often you get this, but in talking to people, I forget that people don't associate cheese and beer as complementary.
more cheese and wine, but
yeah.
cheers. You can use beer too. So.
Right. Well, and there are people who say that beer and cheese complement one another better than wine and cheese do. Like wine is more for fruits and breads and nuts, but beers and
goes good with cheese.
Goes very. It's some of my favorite combinations. Whenever I've gotten to the point now that whenever I taste a cheese, in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, what beer? What beer do I want with this? It's good with ports and stouters, but stouts. I said ports and stouters. That's what. It's good with stouts and it's good with porters, but it's also like a softer cheese with a strong IPA. They combine, a more mellow cheese.
Or even some of the wheat beers. Be great.
The wheat beers are nice and sweet to complement like a sharper cheese. So there's plenty of good cheese and beer. One of my first joys of cheese and beer, and this was before I was drinking craft beer with any kind of regularity, was Sam Adams and sharp cheddar cheese on a Ritz crack, and that was just outrageous. And it had never occurred to me how good beer could be with cheese until I tried that, and that was in like 1992. I was living in New Jersey.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. But I actually got Samuel Adams I was using at the time as a hangover cure. Because if you got hungover enough and you had a Sam Adams in the morning, it would straighten you out. That was when I was a child. I haven't had to use a hangover cure in like 2 weeks. So, but anyway, so as you go along and you're drinking and you're tasting, think about that. Think about the way that flavors go together. And one of the things that I had pitched was like a junk food talk and taste, have
Twinkies.
Yeah, have a brewer say, like my favorite potato chips are.
Potato chips go great. Different potato chips go great with beer.
Right, and so that was my first pitch, and one of the things that my boss pointed out, pointed out because it didn't even occur to me, is that one of our new missions is to try and bring more and more women on as craft beer drinkers, and a lot of women, and I think mostly we're talking about women in their middle ages, maybe late 30s, early 40s. One of the bars to them is they're like, well, beer is just for junk food. Like, so, you can't like that notion of beer being a companion to junk food is something that they already have a connection to. So to reinforce that would be counterproductive for our purposes. And I'm like, well, what about cheese? And it didn't, like I said, it didn't even occur to me because I had heard a talk on beer and cheese a while ago. And I just assumed, once I know, I always feel like I'm the dumbest guy. So I feel like once I know something, everybody else must know it already. But as it turns out, that's not the case. So yes, beer and cheese. If you have any suggestions, any experiences with beer and cheese, any preferences with beer and cheese, please let us know. And hopefully I'll get a confirmation in the next week or so, maybe the next 2, and we'll get it posted up so you guys can come and join us. There's a fee. It's like $5. It's not expensive to get in. It just really covers the beer. I mean, so
I think you're hitting on a topic, just cheese with beer, but I mean, just food in general is good with beer.
Yes.
I mean, you can go again back to Evolution, but they've got their restaurant, which they frequently pair foods with the beers that they have on tap. So
yeah, they'll have it right on the menu. Yeah. And Assawoman, I believe, does the same thing.
Yeah, and you can go to some of the beer dinners around where they'll highlight 4 or 5 different beers for the 4 or 5 different courses they have. So
yes.
This has been going on for a while, but it's just a great event to come taste something.
Right, and just to start to...
It's been paired already.
Yeah, and that's the thing, start to think about beer as complementary to food. And for, again, just to get us over that hump now, I think that it's at least very well known that craft beer isn't for getting loaded. It's not, I mean, if you drink enough of it, you'll get loaded, but it's for the taste experience. And now to take it then to the next level. And most people who drink it do think of it in the pairing sense. But to get people to start trying more of it, to push it as a paired thing, as something that, you want to choose a beer with dinner, that can get us over the hump with people who never thought of craft beer as something.
And there's a lot more complexity in the craft beers and what you go back to the like the beer you were saying was 30 for
Yeah.
$10. I mean, yes, you're paying more for the craft beer, but it has more ingredients and more complexity to it. So that's part of what you're paying for.
Right. And so craft beer, feel free to let us know if you have anything, any preferred tastes. I'm trying, I don't know if you noticed or not, I'm trying to be a little bit more engaging. One of the things I don't know if it's going to work, but I think if I point blank ask you to reach out, you might start. People, I know that you're watching and I know that you're listening. So I want to get a little bit more interaction with you. And speaking of listening, we may be changing channels. I have to go and I have to see how many of you are subscribed. So if you're not subscribed, don't subscribe yet. If you're not subscribed on iTunes, if you just listen when you feel like it, don't subscribe yet because we may be changing iTunes channels. I'll know that about that next week. And then last but not least, Doug is reporting on Chris Bosch and Sam Calagione beer brew in a stretched limousine.
Well, it's just it wasn't brewed in a stretched limousine,
right.
but anyway. But Sam started this new series of beer talks, and he met with Chris Bosch and just asked him what kind of things do you like, what ingredients do you really like as a person, and they made a beer based on that. Also, Sam, I think this is going to be I guess just initially test batches or test programs on the internet, but he's doing a series of 6. But I think this is the first of that batch. And it's called That's Odd, Let's Drink It. So
yeah, and I believe that it might be a television show.
I didn't get that, but maybe these are the preliminaries to see if it would be a television show.
Because the Mario Vitale.
Well, that was part of this one.
Right.
He met Mario Vitale in Chicago at their Italy. Yeah. But they were brewing a beer there. But it was a beer that there's an organization. Back a minute. There's an organization in New York that is a higher end restaurant that wants to bring more attention to the fact that about 40% of all food produced for human consumption goes to waste for some reason. And Mario Vitale, he said that in his organization, they try to sell to the consumer the most perfect things so that it's always perfect. When it's not perfect, then it goes down to one of their restaurants to use for sauces or whatever, where it doesn't matter if it has blemishes. So they're trying to do as much for the consumption of all the products they get, so there is no waste. One of the things that they made a beer that was then presented at an event in New York at the Chicago place. And that's also what he went through, talking about the different things and what they have excess waste of, and they came up with a beer.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, but it's just an interesting show. Again, the odd things that you can think up, and just putting a beer. Sam's always the forefront on these odd things. So
right, and that's
odd combinations.
One of the things that I picked out of I just watched the beginning of the video and then I ran out of time. One of the culture of it, the idea that I'm not what Sam and Dogfish do, I think very well, is they don't worry a lot about trends. They worry a lot about doing what they want to do. We spoke last.
You can look at it another way. They're not worry about trends. Sometimes they are the trendsetters.
Oh, right, and they assume that they're the trendsetters.
Right.
They don't.
And I think they do very well at that. He's always very innovative on things, and look, the craft industry. So over the last 20 years that he's been in this,
and that's what we were talking about last week. Al Stewart, who's like, I just want to do what I want to do, and this is what I want to do, and that's all I'm going to do. And I think Sam's had a lot of success in that same.
Yes, and they've taken 2 separate paths.
Right. I just want to do what I want to do.
Right. Al Stewart just has his own place where Sam has
all over the country.
Yeah, right.
And but it's still based on it. Like, that's what he wants to do. If he wants to, he wants to have beer in Colorado, then he'll bring beer to Colorado. And if he wants to stop, then he'll stop.
Yeah.
And, you know, and establishing yourself as the kind of person who's only willing to do what they're willing to do, but then does it well, gives you some credibility. And that's why people will drink some of the really kooky things. I mean, I can't imagine myself not trying. I mean, I'm probably a bad example because I can't imagine myself not trying a beer generally, but I can't imagine myself not giving a fair shake to an odd beer. I haven't had, for instance, I didn't have the Scrapple beer, but I would have given it a shot just to see how it went over. So, so that's something that we like to push around here. Generally, is the idea of, you know, make some good beers for everybody, and then make some odd beers for people who like to try the odd beers.
Or for yourself. We've got all kinds of different ingredients to make some of those odd beers.
Very excited to see what happens with the H&L series, the Extreme Brewing H&L series. I think that would be very cool. I think people will get a kick out of it. Have you talked to any of the homebrewers about it, the guys does anybody else?
No, not yet. Have just started over the last month brewing these beers. So still preliminary. Haven't tasted anything of the final product yet.
Oh, it'll be exciting to find out. I'm certainly excited to try it. So we're going to get ready to close up now. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that Friday, which is tomorrow. So Friday, I believe it is the 6th. I will be at, where will I be? Oh, I will be at Third Wave Brewing shooting photos for my forthcoming Beer in Delaware book. And we're going to need crowd photos. So if you want to come and be in pictures,
be there.
5
o'clock, 6 o'clock.
Yeah, 6 o'clock will get you there at the right time. We may get there a little earlier. We may get there a little later. But right around 6 o'clock, we hope to start shooting photos for that. And so in addition to the next 2 weeks, do you have any other classes coming up? Any wine, anything in the middle of the week?
Nothing here in Laurel. We've got Lewis. In Lewis, I have a beer class and a wine class on Tuesdays. I think it's the 14th, 15th, 16th. Must be the 17th and the following Tuesday. One's wine, one's beer. It's, again, listed on the website under everything else for classes.
And I want to check those dates because I thought the Tuesday was it's the 17th. Good eye. Well, I had to be someplace on the 12th, and I thought I had to be there on the 17th. I'm glad we had that conversation.
I got it right for a change.
Absolutely. And so we have a new sign-off, but I have to read it because I don't remember it. So until next week, drink what you like
and be happy.